For today's podcast, Dr. Smith, you're back in with us. It's time for another board recap podcast. So thanks for doing this today.
You bet.
Okay, let's start with good news, then we'll get into the meat of the agenda from last night. We had several great things going on to recognize what's happening in the EVSC so far. I think you said this is 7 weeks, if I remember.
Starting the 7th week. Yes.
7 weeks. Time flies. So talking about plans being underway now for the options fair that comes up on Thursday, October 14th. So if you're listening and you have an 8th grader, and you can check Facebook for this, we're putting information out about that. It's a great opportunity for them to go to the Career and Tech Center on Lynch Road starting at 5:30 on that evening, and they can find out all about our innovative model options. We really have some outstanding options if you're not interested just in that specific traditional high school route. So we definitely encourage people to check that out. That's called the Options Fair. Fortunate to have a lot of great partnerships in EVSC, but one of the exciting things, and we're going to be sharing more information on this in the very near future, Evansville Vandenberg Public Library System, phenomenal library system we're blessed to have here in our community. They have access to free online tutoring, and we're partnering with them. We're going to offer that to all of our 6th through 12th grade students, so middle and high schoolers. And again, I said free, so really excited about this. So more information, you're going to find out about that coming up very soon. Shouted out just how great it is to see marching band back in action. They were in action last year, but on somewhat of a limited basis. But I know I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Seeing all of the students out there each weekend now is really exciting.
It truly is.
And then also talking about athletics, also great to see all of our fall sports athletes competing this season so far. But once again, let's shout out those North Husky girls golfers. They won their 10th consecutive golf sectional and broke their own sectional record final, which was a state record, by 7 shots over the weekend. So
that's not a small amount in
golf.
golf.
No. And that's a state record that they had set previously.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter what sport you're in, to win 10 consecutive sectionals, is just quite frankly amazing.
It truly is. And Coach Ken Wimpy does a phenomenal job, and he will be the first to admit he's got amazing talent there. But just that is just a once in a generation team that I think they have this year.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal.
I think we might hear more about them in the coming weeks as they make their way through the state tournament. And then last but not least, Kim McWilliams came up, talked about an exciting grant opportunity that's going to expand access for after-school programming for students. And we've got a couple of other grants that I'm not allowed to say anything yet, been sworn to secrecy, but going to be sharing information very soon about those as well. So these grants can really make a huge impact on our students in schools. So we're always ecstatic to be able to share information about them.
Yes.
And now we will move into consent items, Dr. Smith, and let's start with the EVSC homepage, evscschools.com, and you can take it from there and show us how to navigate that.
Very good. So if you pull down the menu of About Us, go to Board of School Trustees, click on Board Docs, then you will be able to click here, which will take you to Board Docs. And then you will be able to click on Monday, September the 20th. Then once again, click on then View the Agenda, and you will see all of the agenda items that are listed for September the 20th. So let's just jump right in on consent item 2.02, which is the consideration of allowance of payments. So I don't think we've done this before. Let's just click on that, and then public will see what is on the allowance of payments for this particular.
And this is something you see every meeting, right? So
Absolutely.
tell us again what that is, because that is a routine agenda item.
So our school corporation operates 365 days a year. We have board meetings, basically 24 board meetings a year, approximately once every other week. So we continue to pay our bills. We make certain that they're all current. So these are bills that have been paid, but still we need the Board of School Trustees, the officials of the school corporation, then to approve that. And they do it via consent because I think everyone is aware that, our operations continue. And so they have their eyes on all of this. If they have any questions, concerns, certainly can lift that. As we've said numerous times, we are audited every year.
Extensively audited,
to
say the least.
As we should be. All governmental entities are. But then back to the allowance of payments. So these are payments that have been made. You can see here, actually up to September 20th. So from the time the last board meeting occurred to this time, these are payments that have been made. So of the $11.1 million that have been paid out over this last 2-week period of time, invoices totaled $1.6 million. And then contract bus driver payment, a small payment of $827. Cafeteria expenses of $13.8 thousand, $13,837. A net payroll, not the gross payroll, but net payroll of $3.5 million, and then payroll obligations in the amount of $5.9 million. Obviously, this was a period of time where we took insurance payments because we are self-insured. So that is, I think, a big ticket, as you can see on this particular allowance of
And really,
payments.
when you're looking at any of these financial documents, yes, we are a school system, obviously, but really we're a business. When you look at it from the financial side of things, I mean, we have bills to pay just like any business does.
We are definitely a business, and we have just about all of the functionality of a small city. Actually, not too small of a city either. I think I've said numerous times, when you put our student body together along with our employees, we're about the 30th largest city in Indiana, if you
Very interesting.
look at the
Sure.
way cities and populations are
Right,
aligned.
right.
So, anyway, then moving on to item 2.03, consideration to approve a grant proposal. And this is a unique opportunity through ESSER funding. This is actually through the Indiana Part of Education, through their federal funds. They are providing REACH grants, which are reimagining enrichment, academics, and community health. This is a competitive grant. It would be for $480,000 a year for a total of 3 years, $1.4 million. We hope that we are able to receive these funds. They would be specifically for Teacouple, for Highland, for Stockwell, and Plaza. And if we are successful in achieving or in receiving these funds, then that would bring the total to 21 schools that have good, robust after-school programming.
Which
So,
is a number larger than we have really ever had before. I mean, that is
correct.
serving so many students. And I want to shout out to the people that all of our team members in schools or in central office that are responsible for putting these grants together. It takes a phenomenal amount of work, and these are very competitive oftentimes. And so, just not everyone is going to write something for 5 minutes and get a grant. A lot of work goes into putting these proposals together.
You are correct. A great deal of work, but our students are the beneficiaries of that.
Absolutely.
So, very good. Let's move on then to item 2.04. The board actually has a policy that anytime a school would like to spend funds in excess of $500 from their accounts, from their extracurricular accounts, then that request is submitted to the board for their approval. This particular board meeting, we had Central High School that would like to purchase a digital camera, and then New Tech Institute that would like to purchase a 3D printer, both from their extracurricular funds. Item 2.05 is a consideration to approve the renewal agreement with AARP Experience Corps in Evansville. These are folks that do a great job in several of our schools, specifically Kays, Delaware, Fairlawn, and Evans, and Lincoln. They mentor and tutor our students, and we are very pleased to have them back with us again. So I think it's about a $21,600 expense, but well worth it.
Definitely. And I'm just going to pause you for a second, Dr. Smith. You're getting ready to go into the next three consent items, 2.6, 7, and 8. And I want to make sure that we just don't go over this, because Mass Insight has been such a valuable partner to the EVSC. But for people listening, they may not really even know what you're talking about. So if you could keep that in mind and kind of explain that as you go through these next three items, what a difference they've made, and some of the exciting possibilities coming down the pike with this partnership.
You bet. Mass Insight Education has been with EVSC now for 9 years. I think we are their longest tenured partnership in the entire country. They are phenomenal partners. They are experts in what they do. They're actually on the IDOE's recommended technical assistance partner list, and that is, I think, a pretty exclusive list. But we've used them many times in the past. They've been incredibly helpful for us and to us, basically adding capacity in ways that are very economical for us, because we don't add staff and we don't have those staff recurring expenses in order to build our capacity and our knowledge base of things that are very important in running an educational business. So And we separated them out in 3 different grants so that it would be very clear the funding source.
Okay.
The first, we're pleased that the $125,000 is coming from the Indiana Department of Education with their COVID release funds, and that is to help us partner with Mass Insight in developing our next iteration of strategic planning. So we're very, very excited about that. One of the benefits of having Mass Insight as a partner is they know us very, very well. So I think from um, an efficiency perspective, we don't have to spend funds with our partner getting to know us. They do know us very well. We know them very well. And I think that helps us.
A lot to be said for that trusting relationship.
Absolutely. And they have always produced outstanding work. Their quality of work, I think, is really second to
And I
none.
think you mentioned this, but they bring to it a national perspective. I mean, they're working with districts throughout the entire nation, so they're not just their vision is not just here on one certain area. I mean, so their experience is just really extraordinary.
Absolutely. And that kind of expertise is very rare, frankly, in a very unbiased perspective. Item 2.07, the second scope of work then really is during a very thorough analysis of our alt ed ecosystem. So we do have a robust system for alternative ed. We just want to make certain that it is the best system that we can provide for our students. Um, we've not taken this kind of deep dive into our alternative ed ecosystem. We have added some things to it, but we want to make certain that they're all working in concert with one another. We want to make certain that they are serving our students in the highest degree possible. And so, once again, through their national reach, they're able to do a meta analysis of best practice when it comes to alternative education, see what programming is out there on a national level that is having incredible performance. And then they will work with us to see how we can replicate that in EVSC for the benefit of our students.
Well, and we always say that we want to, what drives us, what drives you as a superintendent is to ensure that each and every student in the EVSC reaches to the best of their ability and can be successful. And if they need a slightly different approach, an alternative setting to a traditional setting, we want to make sure that that is robust so that we're supporting every one of these students.
Absolutely. Oftentimes, and we're not an incredibly large school system, but close to 22,000 students. One size certainly does not fit all. And we want to make certain that we don't have a cookie cutter design, but we have programs and practices that meet the needs of each and every student that we're blessed to serve.
Sure.
Moving on then to item 2.08, consideration to approve the agreement with Mass Insight. With the third scope of work, there are several things that are embedded in this. Basically, tailored the school improvement planning process and that facilitation for Glenwood and Kays as well as Lincoln. Support OPAR to look at leadership development, and they oversee, our principals, our principal supervisors, and our assistant principals, and then also to make certain that the school readiness audit, SRA, that revision training implementation is all aligned with their GAIN framework. Because we want to make certain that everyone is rowing in the same direction. And we have many practices and processes. We think it's also time to step back and make certain that these ones that I've enumerated here are in total alignment so that we are all moving forward in the most efficient and effective way possible. And the third part of the scope of work is to do a comprehensive math curriculum review. They did this for us for English and reading a few years back, which was very, very beneficial. Now we want them to take a deep dive in math content. I don't want to suggest that there's a single source that has best practice throughout the continuum of math and in terms of instructional practices, pedagogy, and content. So we want to take the very best that each particular platform may have to offer and then bring that to EVSC, do a gap analysis to see if there are holes or things that we're missing out on, make certain that the continuum of math education is as strong as possible in content, because we know first and the biggest driver in student success is having an outstanding teacher in every classroom. We also know, though, how important great content is. So we want to marry those together, and I think it's time for us to do that deep dive then on math content to make certain that our students are exposed to the very best.
And really, for all of these, you're talking about at the district corporation wide level, because one thing in EVSC that we feel very strongly about, we don't want to create a system where we just have pockets of excellence where you just leave it to chance. We have 40 schools, and that's not to say you couldn't have a great math program at these 3 schools by the nature of that. But what we want to ensure is that every one of our schools is getting access to this research, these programming, the content to make sure all of our students, no matter where you live in Vandenberg County, we're moving in the same direction to make best practice instruction come to life.
Absolutely. I think when you say pockets of excellence, that actually is somewhat of a failure. You should have a system of
Definitely.
excellence. So, and we have phenomenal math content director in Holly Pate, but it is beyond her capacity, just in sheer workload, to be able to do this type of meta-analysis. So that's why we bring in Mass Insight to do that on a national reach, and then make certain that it is implemented as it should be. Moving on then to item 2.09, consideration approve the resolution authorizing tax anticipation warrants. And basically, there is a new provision in Indiana Code that requires a school corporation to have a board resolution, basically authorizing the amount of interest that we expect to be able to pay on our tax anticipation warrants. I think if you are a frequent listener to the program, you will recall that a tax anticipation warrant is basically for cash flow purposes, and a tax anticipation warrant simply is that. It is anticipating the property taxes that will be paid to EVS or distributed to EVSC 2 times a year in June and in December. But because it is only delivered to us 2 times a year, sometimes there are some issues with cash flow. So this tax anticipation warrant helps us get through that. Now, the new provision in Indiana Code requires us to specify how much interest we think we might pay in a year on that tax anticipation warrant. Then item 2.10, consideration to approve the resolution permitting the investment of surplus funds for total monies. This is a resolution that we bring to the board on an annual basis as required by law that basically says this is how we will invest our surplus funds.
Okay. Yeah, and that wraps up consent items. Our next item on the agenda, personnel recommendations. And I know we always say this is here. You can click on that. You can see anything that falls under personnel. Without getting into specifics, you had a couple of things that you were very pleased to see on the personnel recommendations, some hirings of bus and food service. So definitely
Yeah.
excited about that.
Yes, we are pleased. The pandemic has been very difficult on all employees, but certain employee groups in particular. A national shortage of bus drivers. I think Massachusetts has actually called out the National Guard
I believe you're
in
correct.
order
In that,
to
yes.
transport students, and I do believe that there are folks, governmental officials in New York, that are calling for the same thing. I think that just shows the depth of shortage that there are in these specific jobs across the nation. Um, so I'm grateful for all the bus drivers and the bus assistants that we do have. So I appreciate you lifting that up. And then also our food service employees do a phenomenal job too. So
And really, if you know anybody or if you yourself are interested, I mean, we always say bus driving will pay you for the training. It's part-time work, but full-time benefits, and what a valuable member of the team they are. And food service employees, if you're looking just to make a little extra money, or maybe you want a job where you can be gone while your children are gone, but you're home before they go to school and when they get home, great opportunity there. And again, very valuable members of the EVSC team.
absolutely. Thanks for lifting that up.
And then action items. So you want to just give us a quick overview of what happened last night?
Certainly. So item 4.01 through 4.03 really is the culmination of this part of the budget process. The budget process is a 12-month process. And frankly, this is the approval of the budget is a very critical aspect, but it is a small aspect.
This was really the formal final step, if you
Correct.
will.
Yes, of approving the budget. Then there's also the monitoring and the analysis of the budget that goes on throughout the entire
Yeah, our
school
finance
year.
department doesn't just put their feet up now that the budget was
No.
approved last night.
Nor is this the last time that board members will see anything about
Sure.
the budget, as we will share in a little bit with information. But item 4.01, we have to formally adopt the budget for calendar year 2022, which was accomplished last night, as well as 4.0 through 2, which is the adoption of the 22 to 24 capital projects plan, and then finally 4.03, which is the adoption of the 22 to 26 bus replacement plan. So that is the culmination of the planning process for the upcoming budget.
Okay.
And then when we look at 4.04, Chief Facilities Officer Daryl Angermeyer, who does a phenomenal job. He and his team were really, really blessed with all of their talent and expertise. He once again now is going to go out and be, I think, very proactive. As you may recall, we have several solar fields that really are cost neutral for us because we're paying for
Yeah, how
the
is that? Because that's very interesting to hear you say that.
yeah. So the solar fields, we undertook an analysis to see the highest utility bills and then the highest probability of being able to capture savings from solar fields. So we married those together. So we have continued to pay, in essence, or budget the same amount for utilities. But since we now have accrued a savings in utilities because of the solar fields actually producing energy and selling back to CenterPoint, we're taking those proceeds of selling energy back and using those funds then to pay for the installation of the solar fields. So after the payback time, then all of the energy savings, all the money that we are accruing then will go into savings. So we'll actually have our utility bill reduced, which will continue to save us money for decades to come.
So, as you said, it does really require some forward thinking. You're looking ahead for what your anticipated savings are, and it really does make a big difference. And I know last year he was talking about changing the bulbs
Right.
in all of our schools. And when you're talking about 40 schools plus several other facilities, you're talking about a lot of light bulbs.
Absolutely. So what Daryl shared, excuse me, with the board last night was our intent to advertise for performance-based energy operating cost reduction program. So we will advertise to see if there are companies that will take that work on. May do it over 2 phases, but the goal is to replace every single light bulb with an LED, more energy efficient light bulb, as well as to change out the plumbing to make certain that they're all low flow.
Right.
We're just like every other water consumer in Vandenberg County. We're seeing our bills go up because of the investment that was needed in the infrastructure for sewers. So what we're doing is basically putting less water into our sewers than lowering our water bill. So once again, this should be cost neutral, reduction in energy savings because of the LED lights, as well as a reduction in our water and sewer bills. So that reduction then will go to pay for the enhancements in LED lighting and the water and
And
sewer.
as you said, kudos to our facilities team because truly it's this type of thinking that not only allows you to have efficiencies and save money, but see upgrading that is really necessary at the same
Right.
time.
So both the solar fields, LED, and the water conservation, all of that's good for the environment, good for our
Absolutely.
kids and our community.
Definitely. And for our future, sure.
Yes.
And then that takes us into information items. And Dr. Underwood was up with us last night, as he is really once a month, going through his overview. So if you want to just take us through this, we typically do this, and I think it's just important for people to see the information that Dr. Underwood is sharing at these meetings.
Certainly. So item 5.01, that's a monthly review of the education and operation funds. And those are really the 2 largest funds that we have. Um, so this is done on a comparative basis with the last fiscal year and this fiscal year on a month by month, month end balance, giving you the total amount as well as the percent. And as you said, does that on a monthly basis. Item 2.02 is a summary of cash balances by fund. Once again, the same kind of analysis. Dr. Underwood will bring that to the board, and they will look at the various funds, look at the year to date as well as a month to date for the period ending in that month. And then let's take a little bit deeper dive in 5.03 because there's a lot of information here.
And
And
again, it's here. Anyone can click on it. So what
that's
you
right.
click on that, Dr. Smith, what is it that we're looking at here?
Well, let's scroll down to page 4 here. And this is specifically the education fund. So if you look toward the upper right, you will see where it says education. This is on page 4. So then look over to the left, and the title of this is the Cash Expenditure Ledger summary by function and object. So what is the function? Well, if you look down toward the bottom of the page on the left-hand side, you will see where it says full day kindergarten. Okay, that is the function that you happen to see on the page right now. The function number is 11050. You see on the left-hand column, all of those are 11050. That function, which is the State Board of Accounts way of stating that this particular function is all attributed to full day kindergarten expenses. Then if you look at the next column over, which is the object, then these objects are repeated in the various functions. So the first one is 11,000. That's the certified salaries. So in this, what you're looking at here then is the certified salaries, which would be the teacher salaries for full
Certified
day
always means you
kindergarten.
have a teaching license.
Correct. Okay. So if you look at the next column over, total appropriation, that means that is you have permission to spend $3.3 million for kindergarten teachers. That is the Department of Local Government's Finance. They gave us the authority based upon all the information we submitted. That's our budget approval, the appropriation. Then the next column, you can see the month to date expended. So in the month of August, we spent on our teachers $227,249.42 on their salaries in that month. Then when you look the year to date expended, which this particular fiscal year is a calendar year, so it goes back from January of 21 all the way through August of 21, we've spent $2.1 million on salaries for our kindergarten teachers.
Up to this point.
Up to this point. Encumbered basically means, okay, we're going to use funds from this particular period in a different period. We don't have that during this time of year. When you look at the unencumbered balance, then that would be the difference of the year to date subtracted from the total appropriation. So we still have $1.1 million to spend. That's the unencumbered and unexpended balance. And when you look at that unencumbered percentage, that's important because right now we still have about 35.5% of that total budget for kindergarten teachers left to spend.
So, as you can see, earlier in this discussion, we talked about the comparison between a school system like ours and a business. Pick any large business here in our community, and executives could look and see exactly what they're spending. We don't round up or down to the penny. And what you just went through is really the same thing. We can see in kindergarten exactly what we've spent to this point and what we have remaining for the rest of this year.
You're absolutely right. And that is a report that is generated every month after we have finalized or closed out the books on that month. This is a 39-page report, and we talked about kindergarten teachers. Well, the next function would be elementary school. The next function is middle school. The next function then is high school. Then we have academic honors students. We have ag and business ed. Distributive ed. It is broken down line by line.
It's all right there.
Yes. And we provide these kind of financial reports every single month. The board, in addition to what they approved then Monday night, which is the subsequent budget coming up, then all of these are populated. There are at least, at a minimum, 48 financial reports that the board members see throughout a year. And that frankly, is a low number, but guaranteed of 48 reports seen throughout the year.
Well, and that's why I think we always find that it's important too for us to do on these board recap podcasts and to just remind people how to access this information, because this isn't information that's just being put together for our board of trustees. Certainly it's very important for them, for our administrative team, but also for any taxpayer, any member of the general public. That's what you're showing here, how to access this information. You can click on these attachments here on board docs for any meeting we're talking about, but you've talked about before how you can go back several years and see exactly what it is that how the money is being spent, if you will.
Right. Absolutely. And then last information items was the 2-year revenue comparison. So that is also out there on a monthly basis. And we compare August in this particular case from 2021 through August or to August of 2020. So, I know we spent a lot of time on the budget, but I would hope that would be of a major interest to all of our patrons. And Just my one final comment, I guess, on the budget. It is a very intense process, but we're also very different than perhaps the city budget or the county budget. In the city budget, department chairs and the mayor present a budget, but they cannot approve the budget. It's the city council that has to approve the budget. Now, the city council really doesn't present a budget, but they have the legal authority to approve. Same scenario with county commissioners and county council. EVSC, like every other school corporation in the state, as well as all public higher ed institutions in the state, actually do all of that work in-house. The board actually employs people. The EVSC school board employs EVSC employees to craft the EVSC budget for the EVSC Board of School Trustee members to approve. It's not as though we are having one entity go to another entity to ask for permission and approval. It is one entity crafting the budget according to the needs that the school board members have established, and then the board approves that according to the statutory provisions.
And as you said, that's not unique just to our community. I mean, you're describing how it works for
every
school
school
corporations
corporation
and districts
does
all throughout the state of
Yes.
Indiana.
And I think, a lot is made in every municipality of, okay, the city and the mayor goes in front of the city council for the budget's approval. And some question why. Well, why doesn't the school corporation do that? Well, because we are very, very different.
Sure.
It's not two entities having to reach a compromise on the budget.
There's no party affiliation with school board members and superintendents. It's just really everyone working on behalf of the EVSC to make this happen.
I think the other misnomer out there is that, well, if the board wanted to, they could simply raise tax rates to pay teachers more, to pay people more. That is not the case. All of our property tax funds either have a maximum property tax levy or a maximum property tax associated with it. And so we cannot grow beyond that. So that's the way we've been for at least 15 years in my experience here. So
Okay. Well, and as we never make a secret of this, it is quite complicated, I think, to say the least. We're very fortunate to have a financial office here in EVSC with a tremendous understanding, and they work very, very diligently to put together the information that you and I just talked about on a monthly basis, and to spend that entire year putting together a budget that will meet the needs of our students, our families, our schools, and do it in a financially sound method.
yes.
Okay. Well, we covered a lot of information today, Dr. Smith. Appreciate you taking the time to do that. As we said, this last item here, this last section happens on a monthly basis. So 2 meetings from now, Dr. Underwood will be back, go through the same type information for another monthly update. So we can expect that.
You bet we can.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Smith, for joining us. We'll see everyone next time.
Thank you. Take care.